Hey guys, let's talk about the Revel Rascal. I've had it for a year. Here's my extended field test review. Now let's talk about a couple things. First, a little bit about myself as a rider so that you guys have some context on how I got along with the bike based on my experience. Now, I grew up as a motocross racer and as a BMX racer. Consequently, I like to jump around a little bit. I'm a little bit of a goofy person. Can definitely be really goofy. But I know how to ride a bike in different situations. I'm definitely not the best rider on the planet. Certainly would call myself just an average, having fun, love to ride bikes kind of guy. But with that, I love to throw the bike around. This happened to fit that particular riding style very, very well. I am 5'9", 5'10" on a really good day if I'm just, standing up nice and tall. Currently riding a medium frame. I could get away with a large. I like a little bit smaller bike because of the reasons that I mentioned just a moment ago. I have a 50 millimeter stem on here. Bars are set at 780 millimeters wide. 2.5 Maxxis DHF on the front. 90 PSI in the Fox 36. I know that's a lot. Definitely is a lot. I'm between 190 and about 195 on the Super Deluxe rear shock. Now I started running it with the RockShox Pike on the front, set at 130 millimeters of travel. That was the Pike Ultimate. Love that fork, felt great. Have to try something different just to see how it behaves. Moving on back, I ran most of the time with a Maxxis Ardent 2.4 in the rear till I just decided that I wanted a little more grip. I started this build as an XO1 build kit. This is an XO1 Eagle 12-speed. 30-tooth chainring on the front. I go up some fairly steep stuff quite often. Hayes Dominion brakes. Hayes built a fantastic product and they sent me a set to test. I've been very impressed with them. More to come on that. If you have any questions on any particular items on the build, just let me know, especially the brakes. I can talk about those. Other things on the bike to note, Crank Brothers Highline version 2 dropper. Fantastic, haven't had any issues with the thing. It's been awesome. Now let's talk about more of the ride characteristics. Climbing. All right, you gotta go up to get down unless you wanna just take a shuttle or a chairlift or something like that. But for most of us, we need to climb to get rowdy and have a blast coming back down. This bike does incredibly well climbing. The Canfield suspension design was very well thought out. Now for a long time, Canfield has been designing really good suspension systems, but they haven't been paired onto a frame that can really highlight the lively, efficient pedaling characteristics that you're gonna find with these. That is until Revel got together with the Canfield design and said, hey, let's make something killer over here. And that they did. They didn't go too crazy on the geometry. The seat angle isn't so steep that you're just cramped in the cockpit. Instead, I felt like I had plenty of room to maneuver, and I felt like I was in a balanced position when I was on more flowing, mellow trails going up and down rather than just straight up fire roads. That said, I did move my saddle forward quite a ways. The Ergon saddle does allow a lot of room to move on the rails. That was really nice for the steeper Wasatch front climbing that we can often encounter out here. When you go and climb for 3,000 straight feet or 5,000 straight feet or whatever you're doing, those are possible rides out here, and I like to have a bike that's a capable climber in that department. That said, 50 millimeter stem just to, again, open up that cockpit a little bit. Head angle is not so slack that you're just looking down with a set of binoculars to find your axle 18 miles in front of you. Instead, I wanted to find something that was very lively, and that's exactly what Revel built here. They didn't build a bike that wanders through corners. Through tight switchbacks, you feel very composed, and when we get to more in the descending, we'll talk about how composed the bike is on that direction as well. But climbing, it is incredibly good. Now, I did feel a little bit of pedal sag or suspension sag as I got onto a low cadence, high torque pedaling stroke. Pedaling with a little bit smoother cadence and a little bit faster cadence rather, helped with that quite a bit. Small bump absorption on the climbing, unbelievably good. I would often tell people as I was riding this that it behaves something between a Yeti and an Ibis. Now that's very broad, very general terms, but if you were to take, let's say, a Yeti SB130 It was a little bit more harsh on the small bump absorption as you're climbing along and you run over something. You feel it a little bit more than you would on this. You don't get quite as much magic carpet feel on this as you would on, let's say, an Ibis Ripmo. Yes, it's more travel. That's going to give you a little bit more of a plush ride. But in how the behavior of the suspension comes out is that it hovers, it magic carpets your way over things a little bit more, as does a pivot, like a pivot switchblade, for example. That said, I was really, really happy with the overall climbing performance. I've done some really big days on this thing. I've done some very mellow days on this thing. When I say really big, you know, climbing a set of stairs is pretty big for me. But I like how the bike behaves because it can do not just straight up fire roads, but it can do technical, more your mellow up and down kind of riding as well. Seriously stoked on how this bike climbs, how efficient it is. I very rarely would hit the climb switch, didn't really feel like I needed to. I also run fairly stiff rear suspension, that helps, but really the suspension just works that good. Now let's talk about everybody's favorite part, descending. Oh yes, insert all of the fun footage right here. Just let it rip. Just so much fun on this bike. I definitely like to goon around. I like to enjoy the ride. I'm not out to set any king of the mountain fast times. I love seeing a PR every once in a while. I love knowing that I'm getting faster, but really, I like to just have some fun on this bike. It is built to have a blast. Bring the party, as it were. Good gravy. If you want to jump around, goon around, throw the bike around, it'll do it. If you want to stay a little bit more composed, it'll do that as well, but it sounds a little bit bored. Not bored as in, hey, this is a monster truck bike that wants to just mob. No, it likes to jump around. It likes to find a rock on the side of the trail and pop off of that. It likes to look for some jumps on your favorite flow trail. It loves that style of riding. Hence why I'm going to be super sad when I'm not riding it as much. I love this bike. That's really the long and short of it. Absolutely love this bike because of the way that it's balanced, the way that it climbs, the way that it descends, the way that it jumps around, the way that I can get on the back wheel and manual through some things if I want to. If I want to nose bonk over a jump, I can do that. If I want to throw the bike a little bit sideways, I can do that. If I want to try and roast some knobbies going through a corner, it is incredibly well behaved and it eats up the chunder surprisingly well, even given that it only has 130 millimeters of travel. Check out MTB Yum Yum's video, for example, on the comparison between this and a pivot switchblade, a much longer travel, more capable rig, and they did surprisingly well head to head. I was there on that head-to-head test ride, and we ended up switching back and forth quite a bit. I was very impressed with how this handled chunkier, gnarlier terrain, especially if you want to just jump over it. You never feel the bumps if you're just going over them all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this gives you a little bit more info on the Revel Rascal. It may just be your next bike. Comment below. You might find that somebody is asking questions already in the comments, or you could find answers to your own questions in the comments as well. For more videos, stay tuned. Please subscribe, like, and definitely comment. Have fun, ride safe. We'll see you guys next time.
No.